Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Sunday, September 17th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. First up, the New York Yankees taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Carlos Rodon for New York, and no official starter for the Buccos right now. Carlos Rodon, even though the Yankees are playing, probably their best baseball of the season, Carlos Rodon still, in my opinion, remains the weakest link in this rotation, which is, a shame for Yankee fans, as this was the big-time free agent acquisition for the team in the offseason. But Rodon just hasn't pitched well. A 6.14 ERA. He's coming off a good outing against the Red Sox on the road, but he's just been super inconsistent for New York. He's given up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of fly balls, and home runs. He's given up at least one home run, and it looks like his last 7 starts, an ERA above 6 in the month of September. The same thing in the month of August. His strikeout stuff has been decent as of late. We saw in that last game 9 strikeouts in 5 innings against the Red Sox, but 4 walks to go with it, so the control's been off as well. I know the Pirates aren't the best lineup in baseball against lefties, but I do think with Rodon on the other side, the Yankees playing some pretty good ball as of late. I think there's actually some value on the Pirates at home in this one because they've been playing competitive baseball as well. Give me the Pittsburgh Pirates on the money line. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Zach Littell and Dean Kramer are your starters. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Rays in this one. I know it's tough to go against Dean Kramer. He's been the most profitable pitcher in baseball this season. And even when he's not pitching too well, like we saw in his last game against the Cardinals, the Orioles bats have been there to back him up, where he gave up 5 earned runs and 4 walks, but the Orioles still went on to win that game 11-5 the final. But it's going to be tough here. I think, Zach Littell's in pretty good form. He's pitched well on the road this season, better on the road than at Tropicana Field. And I do think the Rays, one of the better lineups in the American League, especially against right-handed pitchers. Littell faced the Orioles earlier this season. He only went 3 innings in that outing. It was 1 earned run, so a 3 ERA, but 5 strikeouts to go with it. I think he's good enough here. I think the Rays have one of the better bullpens in the American League right now, and I like their chances in the third game of the series. So give me Tampa Bay on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Nick Pivetta and Hyun-Jin Ryu are your starters. I like the fact that Nick Pivetta can miss bats and earn strikeouts. We saw his last game, 10 strikeouts for him in 5 1/3 against the Yankees. However, he's facing a Blue Jays team that pretty much overall this season, and then definitely in the last 30 days, has a low strikeout rate and high walk rate against right-handed pitchers. Now, the Blue Jays are right around league average in team OPS, but they are above league average in isolated power against righties. That's an issue for Nick Pivetta, who in his career and this season, he's given up a lot of home runs. 22 home runs given up in 122 innings this year, and we've seen him give up 3 home runs his last 3 starts combined. I do think the Blue Jays get to him. Hyun-Jin Ryu, a solid option for Toronto to start this game. The Red Sox don't have the best numbers against lefties in the last month, or pretty much overall this season either. Give me the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line at Rogers Center. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Miami Marlins. Charlie Morton and Jesus Luzardo are your starters. I know a lot of people are a little bit concerned with the motivation level for the Braves in terms of, they already clinched the division and we still have quite a while to go before the end of the regular season. So, do the Braves really care too much about how these regular season games go? But, they still have to clinch the home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the National League. And this is still a rival here in the NL East. Charlie Morton's pitched well against Miami this season. Jesus Luzardo has a very tough matchup against the Braves team. It's crushed lefties in the last month. And although Luzardo has better numbers at Lone Depot Park this season than he does on the road, when you look at his last few home starts, he faced him tough matchups, granted, but he's struggling in a few of those games. He pitched pretty well against the Dodgers and Rays back on September 5th and August 30th. But before that, at home against the Yankees and Astros, 3 2/3 against the Astros, 6 total runs, 5 earned runs, and 3 homers. Before that, against the Yankees, 3 1/3 innings, 7 earned runs, and 2 home runs. So I'm a little bit concerned. We saw Luzardo really struggle his last game against the Brewers. 10 base hits, 6 earned runs, and a homer. I'm going to take the Atlanta Braves here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the New York Mets. Brandon Williamson and Jose Quintana are your starters. Brandon Williamson, I mentioned a few times this season, not my favorite starting pitcher to back. An ERA that's already pretty steep at 4.47, but even higher expected ERA and xFIP And the New York Mets, even though this team at the beginning of the season struggled quite a bit against left-handed pitching, in the last month, they've made some lineup changes. They're top 15 in team OPS, and they're top 6, or number 6 in baseball in isolated power against lefties with a pretty low strikeout rate and high walk rate to go with it. I think Williamson struggles in this game. The Mets certainly have much better numbers against lefties in the last 30 days than the Cincinnati Reds do, with a 24.4% strikeout rate. And I think Jose Quintana, other than Kodai Senga, has been the best starting pitcher in this Mets rotation this year. Give me the New York Mets. They play pretty good baseball at home. The Reds' bullpen's been used very heavily as of late. Give me the Mets on the money line. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Cleveland Guardians. No official starter for the Rangers, but Gavin Williams going for Cleveland. And I think Gavin Williams has a lot of potential, and we've seen him pitch well this season at times. 3.43 ERA overall this season. However, I'm not in love with the his recent outings against the Giants and Twins, where so far in the month of September, he has actually given up more walks than earned strikeouts, 8-6 walk to strikeout ratio in 11 innings of work. To me, I would consider Gavin Williams a strikeout-dependent starter, especially because his control's not the best, and he does give up a lot of free passes. So if you only have 6 strikeouts in your last 11 innings, I am a little bit worried. I know you're keeping the ball on the ground, a 15-17 ground ball fly ball ratio, pretty solid for a guy like Williams. But I still think the Rangers, even though it's not been the best second half of the season for this team, I still think they're one of the better lineups in the American League. They have a high walk rate against righties in the last month, good OPS numbers and isolated power numbers to go with the top 15 in both. I think they get to Gavin Williams, and even though this Rangers bullpen's not my favorite, I think the bats really back it up. So give me the Rangers here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Kansas City Royals. We're going to see Framber Valdez and Jordan Lyles as your starters. I'm going to go with the over in this game. As Jordan Lyles, we saw him give up 7 earned runs his last game and a home run against the White Sox, and that was a game the Royals still won 11-10. Goes to show you, this Royals team, even though one of the worst records in baseball, in the second half of the year, their offense has made improvements, and even against lefties where they find Framber here, Framber Valdez has pitched well this season, 3.32 ERA, but he's still only 11-10, and we know he's not been very profitable as of late. We saw him lose another game, even though it was a sharp performance, quality start, 7 innings, 3 runs, 10 strikeouts. He gave up 2 home runs, and the A's won that game outright. I think the Royals can find a few runs on Framber early in this game. I think the Astros certainly score on Jordan Lyles, and I think we're going to see the Royals bullpen, not one of the better bullpens in the league, give up a few runs late in this one. So give me the over here in Houston, Kansas City. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Chicago White Sox. Sonny Gray and Dylan Cease are your starters. You guys know I've faded Sonny Gray quite a bit this season because even though he's pitched well this year, 2.96 ERA, since the beginning of May, he's been one of the least profitable pitchers in baseball. And we saw him yet again pitch pretty well. I mean, he only went 4 innings, but it was only 1 earned run against the Rays. Yet the Twins still lose that game, 7-4 the final score. But in this matchup, I do think Gray gets the Twins a W. I still think Gray, like I said, is pitching well this year. He should pitch well against a White Sox team. It's near the bottom of the league in team OPS and ISO against righties in the last month. Dylan Cease has not pitched well. He's given up a lot of sharp contact. The Twins have a very powerful lineup. They should be able to get to Dylan Cease. I think the Twins win this game. So I'm going to take them on the money line on the road. Next up, the Washington Nationals taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Patrick Corbin and Brandon Woodruff are your starters. To me, this is a pitching mismatch. Even though Corbin's been a little bit better on the road this year and he's coming off a good outing against the Pirates, this is a very tough lineup to face in the Milwaukee Brewers against lefties. In the second half of the season, certainly in the last 30 days, low strikeout rate, high walk rate, good power numbers and OPS numbers to go with it. I think Corbin struggles. I think Brandon Woodruff remains one of the better starting pitching options in the National League right now. I mean, a sub-2 ERA this season, a smaller sample size than most starters, only 56 innings, but 62 strikeouts. He hasn't given up an earned run in his last 16 innings of work. Give me Milwaukee laying the 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Taijuan Walker and Dakota Hudson are your starters. We talk about how Taijuan Walker's been a lot better at Citizens Bank Park with a sub-4 ERA compared to on the road with his ERA above 5. However, in the last 5 road starts for Walker, the Phillies are a perfect 5-0 in those games. Most of that's been because Walker's improved his game on the road, but even his last game against the Padres on the road where he struggled, the Phillies bats were there to back him up. This is a very good Phillies lineup against right-handed pitchers as of late. I think to get to Dakota Hudson, who's got 5.1 ERA, but even steeper expected numbers. The Phillies have a big advantage in the bullpen in this matchup in this series. So give me the Phillies on the money line on the road. Next up, the San Francisco Giants taking on the Colorado Rockies. Sean Manaea and Chris Flexen are your starters. The Rockies proved in the first game of this series they're looking to play the role of spoiler. They earned a comeback walk-off victory 3-2 the final. They did so against the Cubs. They played the role of spoiler in that series, winning 2 of 3. This is a Rockies team. It's pretty decent at home. They don't play well on the road at all, but I think even though Chris Flexen is not my favorite option to back, Sean Manaea has not pitched well at Coors Field in his career. He's just not pitching well overall this season either, with an ERA just below 5. The Rockies don't have great numbers against lefties in the last month or overall this season, but at Coors Field, those numbers are better. I think they get to Sean Manaea, and I think this is going to be a close game, potentially a high-scoring game, and if that's the case, I think there's value with the home team here, so give me the Rockies on the money line. Next up, the Detroit Tigers taking on the Los Angeles Angels. No official starter for Detroit, but we should see Reed Detmers going for the Halos. Not my favorite game on the board. Reed Detmers pitched pretty well in his last game. Even though he struggled early in that outing against the Mariners, he settled in nicely and gave the Angels 7 innings of 3-run baseball. 7 strikeouts was enough for the Angels to go on to win that game. But to me, it's still tough to get behind the Angels right now with the way this team has played. And the lineup is looking a lot different than it was at the beginning of the season. The bullpen's been one of the worst in the league. And the Tigers, we saw them in the first game of this series. They were able to get to the lefty Jonathan Diaz for 7 runs late in that ball game. They have pretty good numbers against lefties in the last month. So I'm going to take the Tigers here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the San Diego Padres. Pedro Avila and Ken Waldichuk are your starters. Similar to that Rockies game, I think there's just value with the home team in this ball game because Ken Waldichuk, certainly has a tough matchup against the Padres team. It's hit lefties well in the last month, but doesn't get any tougher than the Houston Astros, the team that he faced last start on the road at Minute Maid Park. And Waldichuk went 6 innings of no-hit baseball, no earned run baseball, and a 4-0 A's win. Waldichuk's been even better at home this season with a sub-4 ERA. Avila's coming off a game where he gave up 7 earned runs to the Dodgers, giving up 9 walks his last 2 starts combined. Give me the Oakland A's here on the money line at home. Next up, the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Seattle Mariners. No official starter for LA, but we should see Logan Gilbert for Seattle. I'm going to go with the Dodgers in this game. It could be a bullpen game for LA. There's been one of the better bullpens in baseball, ERA and expected number-wise in the last month and pretty much overall this year. And Logan Gilbert's not been as good at T-Mobile Park than he has been on the road. He's also given up a lot of sharp contact recently, which is not really what you want to see. 2 home runs his last start against the Angels in a loss. The Mariners are 1-2 his last 3 starts. I think Dodgers, one of the better lineups against righties this season, should be able to get to him. Give me the Los Angeles Dodgers on the money line. And the final game for Sunday's card in Major League Baseball, your Sunday Night Baseball contest on ESPN. The Chicago Cubs taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jordan Wicks and Ryan Nelson are your starters. Jordan Wicks has been really sharp this season, 3-0 record, 1.99 ERA. Sure, it's a small sample size, only 22 2/3 innings, but the Cubs are winning his games. He's not missing a ton of bats, but the Cubs are 4-0 so far in his outings. He's had a pretty weak schedule, but Ryan Nelson on the other side has just not pitched well at Chase Field this year. We talk about it all the time. His home and road splits really severe. On the road, a 3.66 ERA and 83 2/3 innings, so really good numbers there. A 5-3 record, 240 opponent's batting average, not too shabby. But when he's pitching at Chase Field in 51 1/3 innings, a 364 opponent's batting average, over 100 points higher than on the road. He's given up 12 home runs at home and an 8.59 ERA with a 2-5 record. Can't trust him here against a very good Cubs lineup. Give me the Cubs on the money line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Sunday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.